Hi everyone, welcome back to the David Show. I'm David, your host, and today's episode is extra special. We're recording from a beautiful little cafe right by Hoan Kiem Lake in Hanoi. The view here is just stunning. There's the turtle tower in the distance, the golden glow of the sunset, and even a few yellow leaves falling as it's autumn here. Honestly, it's the perfect setting for what we're going to talk about today. Now, let me introduce our guest. She's an entrepreneur running a chain of homestays here in Hanoi, and she's got some incredible insights to share. Welcome to the show, Lana. How are you doing today?
Hi, David. Thanks for having me here. I'm doing great, thank you. It's such an honor to be on your show.
Pleasure to have you. So, how's business been lately? I imagine the homestay industry must be pretty dynamic, especially in a city like Hanoi.
Oh, it really is. You know, Hanoi is always buzzing with life. Tourists come here all year round, so we're constantly busy. But honestly, I enjoy it. Meeting travelers from all over the world is quite an experience.
That's amazing. It must be fulfilling to give people a home away from home. By the way, have you always been in the hospitality business, or did you start in a different field?
Actually, I started in marketing, but I've always loved the idea of sharing Vietnam's culture with others. So, a few years ago, I decided to combine my passion for hospitality and my love for Hanoi. And here I am.
What a journey! Speaking of Hanoi, today we're focusing on its charm, especially for international visitors. Let's talk about what makes Hanoi so special. You must have a lot to share since you meet travelers every day.
Oh yes, absolutely. Hanoi is unique in so many ways. For one, it's where old and new blend so beautifully. Let me give you an example. You have the old quarter with its narrow streets and traditional shops, and then just a short drive away, you'll find modern skyscrapers and trendy cafes.
Right. The old quarter is such a classic spot. Do you find that tourists usually love it, or is it overwhelming for some?
A bit of both, actually. Many tourists love its charm. The hustle and bustle, the street food, the small shops selling handmade goods. But yes, for first-timers it can be, how do I put it, a sensory overload. You've got the motorbikes, the sounds, the smells. It's an adventure for sure.
Adventure, indeed. What's a must-try experience there, in your opinion?
Oh, definitely trying pho at a local street stall. And maybe sitting on those tiny plastic stools with a cup of egg coffee. It's such a Hanoi thing to do. And, I often tell my guests to visit early in the morning when the city feels calmer. Watching locals exercise around Hoan Kiem Lake is quite peaceful.
Ah, I've seen that. It's like the city wakes up with a rhythm of its own. Do you ever join in, or are you more of a coffee on the side person?
I'm definitely the coffee on the side person. Early mornings are usually when I'm coordinating with my team, but I always make time for a cup of coffee.
I hear you. So apart from food and morning strolls, what else do you think travelers should explore in Hanoi?
Oh, there's so much. The Temple of Literature is a favorite. It's Vietnam's first university and such a peaceful spot. And the French colonial architecture around the city, like the Hanoi Opera House, is stunning. Oh, and the night markets. Those are a hit with tourists looking for souvenirs.
I can imagine. Do you think these places offer a good insight into Hanoi's culture?
Definitely. They show the layers of Hanoi, its history, its people, and how it has evolved over time. And a lot of tourists tell me they love how authentic it feels. Hanoi hasn't lost its soul, even with modernization.
That's such a great point. Do you think it's challenging to balance preserving the city's heritage with catering to tourism?
Yes, it is. I see it every day. There's always a fine line between keeping things traditional and making them accessible for tourists. For example, the homestays I run, while they have modern comforts, we make sure to include local touches like traditional decorations or serving Vietnamese breakfast.
That's a lovely way to introduce culture to your guests. Speaking of Vietnamese breakfast, what's your favorite dish to recommend?
Bánh Quan. Those thin rice rolls filled with pork and mushrooms. They're light but so flavorful. And of course, you can't go wrong with bun cha. It's a little heavier but perfect for lunch.
Mouth-watering already. I wonder, when you talk to tourists, do you find that they have misconceptions about Hanoi or Vietnam?
Oh, for sure. Some think it's all about chaotic streets or only visit the big attractions. But there's so much more, like the hidden coffee shops or small art galleries. I always encourage them to slow down and really experience the city.
That's great advice. Hanoi definitely deserves more than a quick stop. Before we wrap up, any final tips for travelers visiting Hanoi for the first time?
I'd say, be open-minded and patient. Hanoi can feel overwhelming at first, but once you let yourself soak in the atmosphere, you'll see how magical it is. Oh, and always carry some cash. Street food vendors don't take credit cards.
Practical and wise advice. Thank you so much for sharing all this. It's been such a joy to have you on the show.
Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to The David Show. If you're planning a trip to Hanoi, I hope you found today's episode helpful. Until next time, take care and keep exploring.